limp Sanfilippo right now. It's Sunday. What's normally race day? The final day of a race weekend where all the hard work is tested on track against the competition. That competition normally friendly, but no less furious. So let's wait and see what the best talent in the Southern Hemisphere can offer here. Virtually one of the few places you can race, one of the only places you can race in these tough times in the world at the moment, as we welcome you to Road America. It's located near Elkhart Lake. It's in Wisconsin, in the United States of America, and it hosts the third round for season 11 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series, with all coverage today on Apex Racing TV. We're also streaming live on the iRacing Esports Network around this 6.5 kilometer circuit of Road America. That's around about 4 miles in the length. Now, it's a clockwise layout, as you can see on screen. There are 14 corners around this classic circuit that presents an abundance of overtaking opportunities and plenty of opportunities to maintain the gap to the driver in front with the slipstream. There'll be 90 minutes of racing action, though, today. The first endurance round of the series. We've got 4 of them coming up for the season. It's also a 600-meter run from pole position to turn 1. So if you haven't nailed qualifying right, these drivers today in this rolling start have got to get it done into turn 1 to begin the race. And if not, they'll have an abundance of time to make up moves through the field. We've seen a lot of movers and shakers in the campaign. Who's going to do it out there today for round number 3? From myself, Jonathan Simon, welcome to the broadcast. It's Daniel Leet alongside me, as usual, each Sunday night for the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series. Scott Newton, our brilliant producer behind the scenes as well on cameras. Daniel, it's brilliant to be back here in the booth for the Sunday night.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan, and to everyone tuning in. Great to have you on board again, mate. I'm looking forward to this one. First endurance round of the championship, as you say. We've got 4 still to come, or 3 more still to come after this one. The racing already over those first 2 championship events has already been fast and frantic, and Elkhart Lake's going to present another great challenge for these guys tonight.
And it's time to look at the grid for today's event. So we talk about challenges. It's going to be a challenge for those starting down the order, of course, for sure. We look at Craig Edwards, who will start on pole. That grid will be up in a moment's time anyway, as the drivers set away for their pace lap. But for the moment anyway, Daniel, here is the grid. It's Craig Edwards on pole, Martin Crisp alongside him. Now, we have some new names that we were coming into this season. Ross Rizzo in particular starting on the second row. And I did see a familiar Brenton Hobson starting down the order too.
Yeah, great to have Ross in the championship. We normally see him in a few other GT leagues, and very quick talented driver. So we're going to look for him to go towards the front. Everyone else in there, though, pretty seasoned veterans, and we know how quick they're being. So I think we're going to see some fantastic up and down the field. It's a really solid grid tonight too, mind you. I think we're just over 50 cars out there tonight, which for all these guys, especially with how tight they are in qualifying, it's open for anyone.
Yeah, and look at the grid as we cycle through right now. Neil Pearson will start down in 24th. We know how quick he is, so keep an eye on him throughout the order. But one thing that people who are new to the series may not know about, Daniel, is that these are fixed setups, and we've had some balance of power with the Porsche for this round.
Yeah, exactly. Normally, a fixed setup series, it does promote, obviously some better options for different cars throughout the course of the championship, which is great, and it provides a huge amount of challenge throughout the whole championship for these guys. For the Porsche in particular, this week. The guys have made a small change to the gearing just to shorten it up, make it a little bit quicker. But the big change is going to be the way the suspension works to get a little bit more point into that car and help it through some of these corners.
So we talk about the multitude of GT cars that are available to use right now. I give you this question each round. What's your favorite to use around here? Do you think those balance of power issues are going to be beneficial for the Porsche, or is that going to set it back against the rest of the Ferraris and BMWs?
Look, I don't know what it is, but I'm always drawn to the Porsche. I love the Ferrari as a car. It looks fantastic. I love the Porsche a bit more. It's probably a little bit weird. I know there's plenty of guys out there that love the BMW, but seems a little bit generic. So I think probably the Porsche. Unfortunately, we see it a long way down the ladder, and I'm hoping to see it in the hands of Adam Gardner tonight, back up towards the point end, and for the boys at Mach 1 also sporting some new liveries out there as well, which is great to see. But it's one of those cars that's ear-piercing sound. It's just what brings you to it.
And so for today, we have 2 pit stops coming up. They're both mandatory, Daniel. One of those will require 4 tyres. Now, before we begin this race, you can't make that pit stop, of course, until a few laps into the event. But with 90 minutes, there isn't really a genuine pit window. These drivers tend to scramble that strategy from week to week.
Yeah, definitely. Well, actually, the interesting thing is now we saw it towards the back end of last championship season. The guys can effectively come in at the end of lap 1. So really opens these windows up. We saw some drivers take that to full advantage last time out. Scott Gamble and a few others. Dave Clements also in the Ford last time out, really working that strategy quite well. So it's going to be interesting to see how these guys do it. And I know we've spoken a few times about going, do you split it 2 and like 30 minutes and see how you go? Where do you put it in? And around this track, especially with how hard it is on those left side tyres, these guys are probably going to want to do it a little bit sooner rather than later.
The best advice I can give on strategy is do your homework, and you'll never go wrong. Make sure you prepare for all situations. That's what Ross Brawn spoke about. Have you ever read his book, Total Competition? It's a good book. I read it when I should have been working, Daniel, in my full-time job, but I spent too much time reading that book. But that's a story, an anecdote for yet another time. It's Craig Edwards who will lead our field away here in the Ferrari. Martin Crisp behind in the other Fezzer. We've got a Porsche, a Ferrari behind, and then one of the lone Fords in the field. It's Jordan Culler starting from 5th. Look at how many cars are going to scream into the first corner. We go green for round number 3.
Yeah, great jump from everyone there. Looks like Ross Rizzo closing in right behind Martin Crisp, but Craig Edwards with a stellar jump, getting a nice little gap now.
Oh, and contact between 2nd and 3rd. Was that Rizzo involved? Rizzo's off the racetrack with Martin Crisp.
Yeah, that's a big one into turn 1. I think we'll see both those drivers getting back underway, but they're going to fall a long way down this leaderboard at the moment.
Everybody beginning to form up down the back of the pack. So it's Edwards who leads the field. Now it's ahead of Adam Gardner, who's in that Mach 1 Esports Porsche. Scott Gamble behind in 3rd. He's having a peek here into the Marine sweep.
Oh, who's that? Lee Vandenberg very, very wide there down into turn 5. So he's going to drop 3 or 4 spots as a result of that. So he'll want to get back underway quickly. Keeping an eye on our drivers well down the order, though, from that contact. Jeremy Clark just coming down into turn 5 now. Looks like also Nick Sanfilippo a long way down from where he started also.
So now down the middle of the order, like we said, everybody beginning to form up here. Oh, there's a car stranded on the racing line. That's going to cause carnage. I would not be surprised here, Daniel, if Ryan Kolstad from Race Control calls the safety car, even a virtual safety car, just to get the field in less tense right now. Everybody's a bit in a tense mood. You want to get them all calmed down, ready to go for a clean start. And just as I say that, that safety car needs to come out, I think.
Yeah, that was another big one there. Porsche involved in that. Actually, it's all happening as the guys get off the kink here as well. So look for the safety car boards to be deployed as an on cue. There it is. But we've got half a dozen cars just stranded in the field now.
Yeah, oh, and they're still colliding after the yellow. Slow down, guys. Goodness me, that's Jeremy Clark in the BMW. We watch the leaders here. I'm not sure if they know what's going on behind them, but a lot of drivers not having the most pleasant of starts to their Sunday evening here. All that effort put in practice and qualifying, and a lot of damage here to deal with. We've almost had 3 big ones there, it looked like almost.
Yeah, about 5 or 6 cars involved on that run through the kink, but they were also unfolding well before that. So a little bit of an untidy start. We can see one of the Mark 1 cars very struggling to get that car back into the pit lane, and everyone now looking to jump in with some damage. So fast repair in use right now, and these guys are really going to have to keep their noses clean for the remainder of this one.
So replay on screen now. This is, well, the incident's already occurred here. So we'll try and figure out what's going on. We're going to cycle back through the order. So this is your lead pack. This isn't your top 10. Oh, goodness me. I mean, just because it's virtual, Daniel, we can have a little bit of a giggle, but I'm sure the drivers in the cockpit won't find the lighter side to...
No, they'll be really bitterly disappointed with that. We're focusing here. Jesse Butler already getting that Porsche around on the exit of the carousel block. Lucky to miss that one. He nearly got caught in that first tangle. Focus on the guys coming through. Just see them lucky to squeak through there.
So Brenton Hobson made his way through quite cleanly. Let's see if he made his way through the second one. Where is Hobart? Goodness me, I've lost track of him. This is like a memory IQ test right now. Oh, he's just parked it there. I think he's made it through. No, he hasn't. He's had a collision there. He almost made it through, Daniel, but not sure if Hobo's streaming that one, but I'd love to see his point of view at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that'll be a great one to have a look at, just to see from some different angles of how all that unfolded. I remember a few of these guys, as you say, Brenton Hobson, one of them, Dave Clemens, a few others, also live streaming this one. So really interesting to get that driver's eye point of view as to what's going on in front of them.
Yeah, so the pace car's out nevertheless. Let's keep track of what's happening here down the front end of the order. A lot of drivers making their first pit stop of the day. Now, I don't know why the likes of Edwards and Gardner, even Scott Gamble in third, have not made that pit stop. Daniel, do they think that once this race goes green again, that they're going to be able to break free from the pack and still continue with their usual race strategy?
Yeah, I think if anything, it's probably going to set them up a little bit better for the long run. Obviously, lap one, these guys were already starting to extend quite a good gap over everyone else behind them. So probably going to play into their strategy a little bit more. They can extend those windows just a fraction, but for everyone else, we've already used up potentially one fast repair for a lot of these drivers now. We're hearing one more time as well, so everyone will get a good chance to settle down. The crowd will reform, but I mean, we got cars while these guys are working down through turn 13. We've got cars all the way back at turn 5, so this field really spread wide open right now.
Yeah, we have that Apex Racing TV track map that we'll take a look at and see the field spread through this pace car period. So we're not going to go green this time around, but our pace car driver will wait for the field to spread out. And there it is at the top right-hand side of the screen. So now pretty much everybody in formation, a few little piggies on their way home towards the pack there. But Daniel, talk about the tires here, because I feel like they'll become a little bit colder during this pace car period. Is there any method to warm them up?
Look, it's going to be interesting to see what these guys sort of deploy. I don't think we'll see a lot of waving, wiggling up and back and forward, trying to get that heat in. Maybe the use of the brake to try and help heat that tyre from the inside. A lot of guys are probably going to, obviously get that good run down into turn 1. So they're going to be working that brake probably towards that back half of this lap now, just to get those temperatures back up, make sure they've got enough of a bite going into turn 1. But probably we'll see the tyres come up as they normally do. Everyone in this car now moved on to that new tyre model, which does make it quite interesting early on. We saw that right here only 2 laps ago with our lead 2 guys coming together and finding their way off into the wall. So anything could happen here. I think a lot of these guys will just play it pretty safely, bring those tyres in gradually, which ultimately is going to help them run them a little bit longer. And remember, we only need to make one mandatory tyre change here. If they can keep the life in them as long as possible, they're set up later on.
Yeah, most certainly. So I doubt any of those drivers, as we see the race control message at the bottom of the screen, identifying that that safety car will be in this lap. So we'll stay tuned for that. It's going to be a long lap, though, at very low speeds. But those drivers who have made the pit stop will certainly not take 4 tyres, I wouldn't think. Those tyres are already fresh to begin the race. They would have just gone in for a quick little repair. So this has happened. This isn't a collision here. We finally found the beginning of the incident, and we've had quite a bizarre crash. I remember last season at Bathurst, we had a track blockage. This is as close as you can get to it at Road America.
Yeah, definitely. Probably the worst point of this circuit too, with the speed that the guys take on the run in through 11. That little bit of an edge, as we see Happets just catch that curve a little before he tipped the car in. It doesn't take much to rotate it.
Goodness me, that's a scary sight, a scary sound for Huppets. He lost it all on his own. The driver behind Huppets as well, wasn't quite sure who that was. Also lost it as well all on their own. So sometimes that can happen, Daniel, when you're following the car so closely up ahead that you just can't see the racetrack and the borders around you. So you end up making the same mistake.
Yeah, it's a little bit of the old monkey see, monkey do kind of mentality, unfortunately. And it doesn't take much because you're so focused on trying to get that line through it. And it is, unfortunately, it's what the eyes see, and sometimes that's where the car ends up. You think of riding a bike. The minute you look somewhere else, you're automatically turning there whether you mean to or not. So it's something that these guys, it's going to happen to the best of them, but they've got a long way still to go to regroup and come back up.
Yeah, most certainly. We've got a lot of viewers on the iRacing Esports Network and, of course, on our other associated platforms. So I hope you're enjoying the coverage. Feel free to chime in of who you think is going to win this race over the course of the next 90 minutes or 80 minutes, as we've already gone into the first 10. No further action for the racing incident with Nathan Huppets. So he spun that on his own. He's taken out almost the entirety of the field, and he's lucky to get away with it for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a good call there. Obviously, once you lose the back end of the car, you're a little bit of a passenger. It's hard to sort of do anything more than try and keep it off the grass. I'm sure Nathan Happett's, a driver of his caliber, doing absolutely everything he can do to try and avoid making it as big as it ultimately ended up becoming.
So Edwards can begin this race towards the final few corners. And once he makes his way past those designated restart zones, this field will be on a run here on this main straight. It's a 1 kilometer main straight here at Road America. That's why that draft is ever so important. Through Bill Mitchell Bend, and now the final corner. He's waiting quite a while here. I think he's floored it. Yes, he has. Edwards goes green again in the Ferrari.
Yeah, great jump again from Edwards. Almost carbon copy of what we saw him do first time out. Dylan Loeb getting up close and personal with Scott Gamble as well on the run in. You can see Gamble going very defensive, trying to hold that off. Vlock just sitting there, keeping an eye on it. Gamble gets that move done.
Heard a bit of contact here through the mid-pack, but it looks clean as they head towards turn number 3 on the circuit. Turn 2 is that little kink. It's not really a corner, is it? But as the drivers fight and scramble, good to see a clean getaway this time out, as now they run through the second straight on the circuit. On the run down to that downhill braking zone into the marine sweep, and that's 2 times out of 2 that we've seen Edwards break away from P2.
Yeah, he's really got the starts well and truly mastered there, just keeping an eye Gardner just a little bit wide there on actually dropping 2 spots. So now he's got Adrian Block just closing in, but struggling a little bit early on with that portion. We know, we touched on it earlier, they had some VOP changes just to help bring that car back up, maybe just waiting for that window to open up.
God, the Porsche looks so beautiful, doesn't it? As we see a drive-through penalty for Martin Crisp, of course, for not leaving racing room. So he'll have to serve that in the next few laps, as Ryan Kolstad and race controller frantically investigating the multitude of incidents in the early laps. But for now, though, the battling seems to be dwindling away up ahead in the top 10, but it's still continuing outside your top 10. This is Braden Nash in the 18th position.
Yeah, good solid run for Nash. Up 10 spots, obviously with all the incident did help him there, so he's working pretty hard. He's got Warren Pickering right behind him, though, in Fusion BMW. We've got another car up against the wall. I think everyone should... Oh, someone going up on 2 wheels there.
So that was a BMW, and more cars off into the barriers. We're just glad that didn't cause a big pile up this time out. So race control will be looking at that for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if the driver lost it again, but the kink at Road America here, it's a thrilling corner to drive, but so easy to get wrong as Edwards leads the field for the first racing lap.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of this whole circuit. You can take every corner in about 4 or 5 different lines, and it's very hard to get the ideal line of where you want to go. But these guys will get this sorted out, and now that we've got our first clean lap under the books, we should be right to go. Steve Bartholomew doing a very good job though in the RRT car, working up on the back of Sam Holden, and Scott Hausler just in front of him in that Ferrari as well.
So So Bartholomew through the exit here. A couple of the forwards there just kicking up the dirt on the exit. That won't hurt your lap time too much. Just shows that they're on the limit. And here's Tom Huggins. What do you think about that? Drive-through penalty for Huggin now as well for causing a collision.
Yeah, that'll hurt him. Huggins down in that 31st position already, so he's going to fall right to the back of this field. We've got a few more drivers also in the lane getting a couple of stops done. I imagine that would be for what we saw just before through the kink there, working their way back up through the field though. Peter Hunter on Ross Rizzo, Spezio off in the grass there as well, so he's dropped a couple of places also.
Yeah, Rizzo down almost 20 positions too after that incident at turn 1. They were the first incident of the race when Ross Rizzo was involved in that before they even reached the first corner. It was quite bizarre to see. But here's the XRC racing driver of Nick Sanfilippo, currently in the 22nd position, who's up 12 spots in this event so far. Let's ride on board with him. Daniel, I'm afraid to see what's on the other side of this kink.
Oh, yeah, so am I. It looks like everyone getting through nice and easy, although Paul Wood right behind. Very wide excursion for the viewers, just keeping an eye on the little rear view screen there. Out in the dirt, Sanfilippo, actually Peter Hunter, not able to quite get that move done. But Paul's struggling a little bit in that BMW series again off the circuit there.
Yeah, and he's off the track, Paul Wood, so lost a couple of positions as well. I mean, I love that from you as well. It goes to show you driver awareness, Daniel. You jump into the cockpit camera. It's almost as if you're driving that vehicle. You're looking behind you. You're keeping aware of everything going on. I love it, mate.
Yeah, it's a great thing being able to keep an eye on that. And I think probably we saw that a few years ago when they brought those in. Great bit of awareness, bit of kit. Kane Ryder likewise getting involved here, trying to put a move down on Sam Holden. 3 wide action, and actually Scott. Chris Robinson getting through, also Scott Hauser, so great job for both those two.
So 2 wide action here on this second straight. One of the cars behind, is that Scott Hassler? I think Scott Hassler's 2x2 here. He's on the right side. Excuse me, he's on the left. That's Scott Hassler in that Kalioth racing car, but one of the drivers behind him, I think that's Sam Holden in the forward, just had nowhere to go as they rise up here through the middle sector. That left-hander there, it's so easy to lose the rear end because it's off camber.
Yeah, definitely. Not one of my favourite corners on this circuit, as you say. That off-camber nature really makes it very hard to get the most out of those cars. Brenton Hobson working his way back up through the field, currently down in 13th spot, so that earlier incident hasn't really impacted him too much. He's gained quite a good handful of positions right now. But probably one of the trickier corners, and then we saw it, we know how tricky the kink is watching these guys come through. I reckon probably the other big corner that doesn't get enough mention is the carousel. 8, 9 and 10 there, that's going to come in really key later on with the guys in the tyre strategy.
Yeah, that's key, of course, too. I'm not going to forget about that. Here's the Synergy Sim Racing driver of Hobo coming through Canada corner. One of my most favourite corners. Just love to throw the car there into the apex. Now through what's known as Bill Mitchell Bend. Rise over the crest. It's blind as these drivers complete the lap here. So this final corner one day, Daniel, this was back in 2014 when I raced for Positive Sim Racing. I've told the story a million times. I was setting up my team owner for a ripper of a pass to impress him, hoping to get a big contract, and I ended up spinning right behind him in his rearview mirror as we watch Hender here up the inside make a move for 7.
Yeah, nice clean move there for Hender, but yeah, that's certainly not one way to impress the potential team owners. But Tim Phelan getting that move done. Chris Robertson closing in. So Hender, a little bit of a meat and a Mark 1 sandwich right now, and good to see all 3 cars there, the Ford, the BMW, and the Ferrari, reasonably well paced at this point.
Good stuff. So we'll see how the pace progresses throughout the race. A lot of drivers fans of the Ferrari. Good to see a few more Fords out there in the field. I'm surprised by the BMW's lack of pace. Are you surprised by that too as we watch some action here again between these two?
Look, not so much. I think given what we've seen with some of the changes that iRacing have rolled out, we know that the series here didn't really adopt those big changes for this event, trying to keep those setups as close as possible and really bring the BOP back together. I think it's just what we're sort of expecting to see. We know there were some changes end of last season to help a few cars get up and amongst it, and we're at a pretty good point right now. The Ferraris are up there, the Porsche's still hanging on in that top 4. in the hands of Gardner, so I'm really waiting to see him come to life in it. But I think it's great. We've got a huge mix of cars inside that top 10, and it's almost anyone's game still.
So as Daniel says, it's anyone's game. This lead battle here is half a second between Craig Edwards and Scott Gamble. And it's great to see Scott Gamble up fighting for victories. He has the pace for it. Daniel, it's just whether or not he can do this week to week.
Yeah, consistency is a hard thing because there's not every circuit's going to be one that every driver's going to love. I think Road America, it's been on the cards for so long. Everyone's got a pretty good sense in it, but yeah, great to see these guys coming up. I know the amount of time the Mark 1 boys put in alongside the guys from Fusion as well, do a huge amount of laps around these places, so great to see them pushing on. DPR Racing, though, currently sitting in third with Dylan Loeb. We haven't spoken a lot about him so far in the course of this race, already up 19 spots from those earlier issues that we saw a lot of drivers having, putting a very good race together already. He was really quick last time out at Montreal last season. Unfortunately, didn't get the win, but we know he's a very consistent driver with a huge lot of potential there.
Was I at that race? Was that the race with SVG? Or was that the season before I'm thinking about?
Well, the SVG race was Barcelona, and that was a humdinger of a race. So much side-to-side action. But yeah, it was, I believe, yes, you definitely were there for Montreal. That was also a cracking race. See the pace that Loeb had on board that car, and then unfortunately it just didn't come to fruition at the end there, but certainly the class act.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember, because I remember we had a race with, I definitely know Justin Ruggia was there. He's been at a few of these events. But I do remember SVG was at Montreal. It was either last season or even last year in 2019, one of the two. But anyway, it doesn't matter as we watch Dave Clements here in the Mach 1 Esports car. This is Nathan Huppertz now as we switch to him. Huppertz in the BMW. The Fusion Sim Racing driver is in P23. He's down 15 spots. How would you feel about that as a driver so far in this event?
Oh, for sure you'd have the red mist out, but you've got to try and keep that calm. You can see him pushing that BMW through the kink there. Just behind him also Rizzo trying to get back up after his little issues at the start of the race. So you just got to try and knuckle down, don't let it phase you and come back through. And with the likes of Happen's, Rizzo now, those guys certainly have the ability to pull these cars further back up towards the pointy end.
Yep, so we're watching Julian Kleinbusink, and he almost butchered that, and he's going to possibly serve his drive-through penalty now. Now he does. So it's not so much of an issue entering that pit lane in a GT car. But I do know back, and I spoke about this whenever we last came here, I think it was last season for the AMF GT series as we watched the battling going on here. But there is that bump on the entrance to pit lane, which can really unsettle the rear end. And I've seen it end a lot of races, especially in the old Formula One Grand Prix series we had on iRacing.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I think as you get over the crest coming into the lane, it's a very sharp notch there as well that you've got to be wary of also. So there's quite a few, while it looks simple, you just basically point the car up the hill and get it in. It can be a little bit tricky as we see one of the RRT cars down the inside as well, a little further up from this battle. It was Sam Holden trying to get a move done. Actually, it might have been Sam Bartholomew actually getting that move done. So good job for him, now up into the 10th spot.
Yep, but another drive-through penalty for Aaron Specchio. We might have a record for penalties in this race. And no, Pastor Maldonado is not racing as we watch one of the Synergy Sim Racing drivers. Sorry, Pastor, he might be watching. One of the Synergy Sim Racing drivers making a move up the inside there, down the back of the pack. So this is Sam Holden on screen. And behind them, it's Jeremy Clark and Scott Heisler in the Ferrari. Coming through the kink, you want to form up here. I've been too wide through the kink, and I have to say, Daniel, I don't know how I made it on the other side without an incident.
Yeah, I no idea how you do that. That's not where I want to be on the outside there. Those two Synergy cars we touched on, Nash and Hobson, the teammates working their way through, but no, I would not want to be there. Actually, speaking of videos, you brought them up earlier on. If anyone has not seen it yet, there was an IndyCar documentary filmed, I think it might have been the start of the 95 season through IMAX, all around this circuit. And the Newman Haas team, Michael Andretti, I think Christian Fittipaldi, first time in that championship as well. Unbelievable watching the cars go around here.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little later on. This is Jordan Cullis involved in an incident here down the back of the pack. He's got to be careful. That's his teammate trying to make his way through the field, but that's another incident that may pull a safety car. I think Ryan Kolstad will be reluctant to call it. That's the beauty of virtual racing, but let's have a look at the replay here, Daniel. Goodness me as well. That Century Batteries car up ahead just had nowhere to go, did
No, a little unfortunate there. And who was the other guy involved in that? I think it may have been potentially Jesse Butler in that as well. So a little unfortunate end there to that kink section again.
So, of course, this is watching Adrian Vlock here on screen. He's in the 5th position. Wondering if something's happened to Adrian Vlock here. It's showing us a replay for me. No, we're back to live picture. So there we go. Adrian Vlock's all good. But he's in the 5th position having a good race. But we talk about sponsors for this series, Daniel. We're about 20 minutes through the event. Of course, the Britzy Raceway have returned for the season. So have Simfinity come on board full-time as well, not just for the endurance races. And let's not forget rms55.com.au, the race management service, a brilliant app to use for the iRacing service.
Yeah, definitely. The guys behind the scenes doing a huge amount of work for that, allowing you to get multiple sessions up at the same time, which is great to see, and using it alongside this championship and quite a few others already in the Australian community. So jump on board, have a look. I believe you can also download the app right now as well through the Play Store, and I believe iPhone as well.
Whatever it's called on the app.
Available on all major platforms, which is great to see. And for what they've put together to help iRacers out, not just Australian iRacers all over the community, doing a fantastic job.
Just by the way you butchered that, I can tell you're an Android user, you're not an Apple user. I guarantee it right now, 100%.
Can neither confirm nor deny. Actually, to be fair, I'm an Android man all the way. I do have an iPhone though, and it's work related, which doesn't get used very often. But if you give me a choice, it'll be the Android the whole way.
Well, me and my sister daily argue about the Android to Apple battle. I'm a big Android fan. She's made the switch to Apple, I think 4 or 5 years ago. I've never looked back, so that says a lot about her opinions as we watch Brett Hender here for Team Hyperdrive. He's on the defensive here because that is Chris Robertson in the Ford. Having a look at the marine sweep. Now, the difficulty, Daniel, with that corner at the marine sweep is the downhill braking zone. A lot of drivers tend to lock up and tend to run very deep.
Yeah, it's an easy one to do because you feel like you can push the car a little bit further. You've got a late apex to try and cut back up towards turn 6 with the rise, and you're trying to keep as much momentum as possible. So it's a very easy one to get undone. Chris Robinson, though, just hanging tough in the Ford, not letting him go. Must say as well too, quickly, Brett Hender recently made the switch from Team Hyperdrive, currently driving for Fusion Sim Racing as well. So quick little update, sorry mate. But they're doing a very good job, both of these guys, hanging tough, both sitting nicely inside that top 10 as well. As you see, a nice run through the kink. Little bit of a lift there for Robinson though.
Is dirty air a part to play in this car?
It could be. I think could be a little bit of the setup. You saw Robinson tip the car in a little early. He's got a little bit of an early turn in, which, as you see just now, maybe just unsettling the balance of that just a fraction, and just needing to ease that up a touch. But I guess it's the hard thing while you're behind the wheel. You think you can turn it in just that little bit quicker, maintain that speed. In those couple of spots, just not quite working out. But you can see the gap that's already starting to happen out for Brett Hender down 1.5 seconds up the road as a result of that.
So let's see if the Mach 1 Esports driver of Robinson can indeed catch Hender. He was all over the rear end of him last lap, but now he's dropped off the pace as Hender is starting to pick up the pace in his Ferrari. 1.5 seconds up on Robinson now in the 8th position. So down the order, you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, if you want to keep track of this race, everybody is in the same class. Those different colors identify their license. There are some drivers with a higher I rating than others. The highest I rating is in purple. Green ranked second. Then we got your orange in third, and so on until our rookie drivers down the bottom end of the order. But regardless of that, it goes to show, look at the gaps from, I think it's, Bartholomew in 9th, all the way down to Brenton Hobson in 16th. This is a mammoth train as we watch Bartholomew suffering with some issues here in the Ford.
Yeah, didn't quite see what happened there, but he's struggling to get that car back in. Loses 2 spots. As with all that, Kane rider Jeremy Clark squeaking their way through. Braden Nash now all over him. And you know what we saw from Braden last season out. Recently did a team change from RSR Esports to Synergy Sim Racing. Still kept that same driving mentality. Very, very focused, pushing forward as much as he can.
Brendan Hobson in 16th at the back of the train. I remember back to last year when I met Brenton Hobson, Daniel, all the Supercars E-Series drivers, and I obviously was a pit reporter for the series. We all met for a dinner on Media Day. And I introduced myself to everybody, and a lot of them knew me. And Brenton Hobson said, hey, mate, I had no clue who you were. I just said hi and didn't want to be rude. And I was like, oh, it's all good, mate. I sort of recognized him from his streams. But as we watched Bartholomew take off the racetrack there, we'll lose a position or so. But Brenton Hobson, after I met him after that dinner, is one of the best blokes out there in the world of sim racing for sure.
Yeah, true gentleman. I mean, you look at what he puts together for his online streams. Very, very good. Very approachable. I've seen him racing quite a few seasons, both AOSC, a couple other championships along the way. The old Australian Endurance Championships for mine. And yeah, consummate professional. Very easy to speak to, gives you the world, and has a lot of knowledge and information.
Yeah, for some reason he thought I was someone random just coming in to say hi to the table, and then I just sat down. But that was a very entertaining dinner. We've had some stories we've shared on the podcast every now and then, but that's, again, anecdotes for another day as Hobson promotes himself into the 15th position. He was involved in that lap 1 incident at the exit of the kink on the run down to Canada Corner. It was the big one here at Road America. He's trying to make amends for that poor start for the moment. Now look at the amount of green ups on the left-hand side of the screen. That's the best way I can describe it here. Oh, and there's contact. Kane Ryder off the racetrack for Max Boost Racing. And he's going to continue away. Lost a lot of positions.
Yeah, and I think also we saw Braden Nash involved in that as well. Cut back to a replay. As you can see the guys diving down towards turn 5. Nash down the inside, almost split him. He got 2 spots there trying to tuck back in. So keep an eye on Nash with the big move for Synergy, but unfortunately not coming off. And that will certainly attract the attention of race control there. It's a little bit of a clumsy move there from Nash. And we've got to feel very hard for Kane Ryder there. Just caught up, wrong place, wrong time, and suffered the worst. Drops down now to that 19th position, so loses 3 spots there.
This is a weird question, but is Ryan Kolstad married at all? Because I got something I was going to say. If he is, he's not having dinner with the wife any day this week with the amount of incidents he's going to have to review over the next 5 days.
Yeah, look, can't answer that one. Yeah, not going to answer that one. Going to leave that one around. I'm sure we will get to the bottom of that.
Ryan Kolstad, come into the commentary booth mid-race and answer the question for us. He's probably too busy to do that as well. Excuse me. What am I saying? The dude's got his work cut out for him in race control. Now, we have a couple of pit stops here. I see Braden Nash and Kane Ryder enter the box. Now, I believe this would be for Nash's second stop, but it will be Kane Ryder's first stop of the day.
I would actually expect we'll see this be Nash's drive-through, Ryan. Race control, sorry, yes. Very quick on announcing that as a drive-through penalty. Nash getting in and serving that pretty well straight away, which you want to do, try and get him out of the way as close as possible. A little further up, though, Peter Hunter, Michael Kirkham going at it. Dave Clements recently switched from that Ford. We saw him running all the last season into the Porsche. Great to see another Porsche there. Actually, sorry, apologies. He's in the Ford right behind us. Michael Kirkham in the Porsche getting amongst it. 3 of the Mark 1 cars trying to freight train their way through.
Yeah, here we go. Oh, lock up there for one of the Ferraris. He's going to have to take off to the racetrack there. I see Dave Clements as well in the Mac 1 Esports Ford. Just slotting himself in third in this little train here, but goodness me, wherever you look here, this action, it's a big field out there racing. It's good to see. Now, that Braden Nash drive-through, did they make an announcement? Because I didn't see anything at the bottom of the screen. Yeah,
it was a very quick announcement that popped up. Might have been a handful of seconds after we saw that replay conclude there that we had that notification. And I did hear a little whisper across the race control channel that he would be coming down the lane.
Yeah, nice work there, Daniel. Good spot. As we now coming towards half an hour into this event. So some drivers haven't made their pit stops. Those are your top 5, all the way down to Adrian Vlock. 7th position is Brett Hender. He also hasn't made his first of 2 mandatory pit stops. Here they are across the start-finish straight over that lovely camera there over the walkway above the racetrack. This is Brett Hender in the Fusion Sim Racing for Ferrari. And then down the order, I see another couple of drivers. So I see Warren Pickering yet to enter the box, Peter Hunter as well. And let's not forget Scott Chambers, who's all the way down in 30th, yet to make their first pit stops of the day. Only about a couple of drivers have entered the lane twice. Some of those have been for penalties, so we don't know if they're official pit stops. But let's see how they fare over this next 60 minutes. Still a lot of racing yet in this race, Daniel.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, first off, we're almost what we would expect nearing that final 15-minute range for our normal sprint round. So huge amount of time still left to go, and I'm thoroughly enjoying this one so far. I'm sure there's quite a few drivers a little bit bitterly disappointed already from some of those issues we saw earlier on, but how good has the racing been since that's all now unfolded?
Yeah, lovely stuff. There are the pit stops on screen. That's Scott Newton behind the scenes, pressing the buttons in production. Doing an awesome job, of course, too. Daniel Leet alongside myself, Jonathan Simon, bringing you all the coverage here over the next 60 minutes. Dave Clements bringing us the action on the racetrack here as they climb through the left-hander of turn 6. And Clements, odd to see him down in the 23rd position. We know he's a capable race winner, but it's good to see that the blood sugar levels will be rising here through this action. The heart rate will be pumping.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was Peter Hunter just trying to work his way back through, getting that position done. Rob Crisdale closing in as well. And that JPS Simsheds Ferrari as well. So great to see Rob out there having a solid run. Also already up 14 spots. So these guys all working their way up towards the top. They've had some good gains. Must be said, you know, outright pace at the moment, still relatively comparable to what we're seeing from our leading contenders.
I see Mr. Hobson in the pit lane. Can we confirm that? It is. Brenton Hobson in for that, what should be his second stop of the day already. So do you think he can run to the checkered flag like this?
Oh, it's a tough call. I think the cars will probably struggle to get there just, and if he can, it'll be by the smallest of margins. We see Gardner just losing the rear end of that Porsche. That's a weird spin down at turn 12 down into Canada Corner. That's a very odd one.
Now, how many positions has he lost there? He was in our top 5, wasn't he? So he's lost a multitude of spots, Adam Gardner. This has really hurt his race right now as he drops from, I think he was definitely in the top 4, 3rd or 4th, definitely from my memory. But Gardner right now in the Mach 1 Esports Star would be the right time to make a pit stop, which he hasn't, just to refresh himself. I think he's sticking to the strategy, but he's all the way down in 13th after that error.
Yeah, very unfortunate there to see what was already becoming a really good run for him unfold the way it did, but he'll push on, no doubt. Richard Hunter doing a likewise good job, up 20 spots already, so really getting on with it tonight. He's got Steve Bartholomew, who we saw having a really good run earlier on, working their way back up, and then you can just catch that little glimpse in the background there, Adam Gardner, after that bit of a spin. Looks to be suffering just a touch of connection issue as well, which might be throwing him off just a fraction. So hopefully that'll settle itself down as well for him.
Well, Sunday nights in Australia are never the best days to be downloading stuff. We figured it out. I think last year I had some issues just sorting myself out for this series on a Sunday night. And I guess as well with the whole coronavirus situation occurring too. Everybody's on streaming networks, and now with Foxtel, I mean, Foxtel didn't really open up much, but with Foxtel doing their stuff, I guess a lot of bandwidth being used.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not going to say how much bandwidth I'm using right now just to keep an eye on everything going on, but we have absolutely everything going on between this, the chat, keeping an eye on the live timing. It's a great night to be out having a watch. But yeah, over the next course of the next few months, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how these things unfold on the bandwidth side. Richard Hunter down in for a stop as well. Looks like Alex Court also alongside him as well.
Here we go. Quick pit stops for sure for these guys. I guess the pit crew's having a chat to the left-hand side, Daniel. We're not seeing much work on the car here. It finally goes up on its jacks. And the dudes are still having conversations on the left-hand side. Come on, team. Do your stuff. Get the car serviced.
Yeah, probably enjoying the old ice cream out the trailer box. So keeping an eye on it and going forward. Warren Pickering doing a good job. Mitchell Bales right behind him. The recovering Ross Rizzo just behind these guys down in 15th. So for all those issues we saw with Rizzo, where he dropped right down to the back of the field at the end of turn 1, lap 1, working his way back up. Good run for him too.
Yep, there's the Trick Esports driver of Rizzo. I met him at the, what was it called again? The VSR Showdown in 2018. We're at PAX Australia. And I think the first person I just wanted to talk to some random sim racers. I didn't know Ross Rizzo back then. I just said, oh, hey, mate, how you going? And he's like, what's your name? My name's Ross. Started talking sim racing, started talking rallies, started talking all these old different simulators. And I'm like, man, this guy must be sim racing for a while, you know? And then you go and track at what he's done, and the dude's just naturally quick, you know? I feel like if Ross Rizzo, you gave him time to do at least 4 to 6 hours of sim racing per day, I reckon he'd be one of Australia's best.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, he puts in a huge amount of time. I know the guys at Trick Sim Sport, Anthony Winkelman and all the boys that are on board that team, taking it from strength to strength. We saw him recently change from Trick Sim Sports to Trick Esports, but they are coming on in leaps and bounds. They took quite a few championship wins over the last couple of years. I mean, Rizzo, a class act in the GT cars. We saw what he did with that Geodesic series as well, being taking 2 back-to-back championships on the fly as well. So very solid race contender in Rizzo. Like I say, unfortunately got caught up in that earlier issues, but the pace in that car right now, as good as what we're seeing the leaders. 202, last time by plays a 201.8 for our leaders, so very, very quick.
Yeah, so the race still on here, and some quick lap times, like you say. So what else? We're looking at the lap times now about the 2-minute range. Is that quick for Road America?
Yeah, it's about what we'd expect in these cars. You probably squeak down a little bit quicker. We'll keep an eye on this. Rizzo down the inside, gets that move done and dusted on Pickering. Nice and easy down into 5. It's about what we'd expect with the 2-minute range around this circuit. A little bit slower if you get into the V8s and a couple of the slower GTs. I think the GT3 might have been 2 minutes 8 from memory. Maybe the GT1s be that fractionally bit quicker, where you might see it sometimes under the 2-minute range, but GTE pretty comfortable at 2 minutes right now.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully those lap times start to get a little bit quicker towards the end of the event once they service the GTEs and get a bit more experience, fresh rubber under their belt. Haven't seen a lot of this, man. Lee Vandenberg in the 15th position for Mach 1 Esports. And he's screaming through the kink. He's not traveling through there. He's literally traveling at the speed of light right now, trying to keep Michael Kirkham behind. No, excuse me. Sorry, trying to make a move on Nick Sanfilippo ahead. And the BMW Sanfilippo been everywhere this race. Let's fire it on board with Vandenberg. Let's see how he maneuvers over the final few corners.
Yeah, actually both cars looking very nice through that last phase of corners there. You can just see Sanfilippo diving to the lane, but both the Ford and the Ferrari, sorry, the BMW and the Ferrari, get it right, Daniel, looking very good on track, turning quite nice, seem to be hugging in that apex of the corner quite well as also. So, and the ride control, big thing around here, looking very good also. So the setup engineers behind the series, for those, as we touched on earlier, may not be familiar, fixed setup. These cars looking very, very good right now.
Well, Martin Crisp, according to his profile picture, is a transformer. He's an actual car, as normally we see the driver's faces there, but he's in the 20th position, attacking Julian Kleimbesink, who had a drive-through penalty earlier in this race to deal with. But now, Daniel, this could be a good or very bad question. There's never a bad question, is there? But with fixed setup events, what can you change on these cars? Does it depend on the server settings, I assume?
Yeah, a little bit on the server settings. From memory, I believe there's a little bit of adjustment for brake bias. Obviously, you can play around with the fuel, because we know that these guys got to make a couple of stops. They might be able to squeak a little bit of fuel in, but there is a ceiling that they can't go past. So there's a couple of options for the guys to have a bit of a tinker around with. And each driver has their own little preference, but they've got to maintain it inside that little window.
You saw Martin Crisp there getting a bit too hot into turn number 5. That's the exit of the Marine Sweep. Now we head through the carousel. I haven't spoken about this corner too much. Those left side tires would take a beating. Would love to see the telemetry live if we had it. Of course, that's only up with the drivers and the teams. That's private, but the XRC racing driver of Crisp would certainly be heating up the left sides, and then you don't get to call them because look at all these right-hand corners right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, you go off that long radius carousel bend, you're straight into the kink. You get a little bit of a breather down into Canada corner. So working those tyres extremely hard. I think it's one of the things I love about this circuit. It's different to what we see with everything else. I mean, you could go to a Bathurst and you've got your left and right, a lot more twisties. This really makes you focus on getting that one side of the car working well, but then not overdoing it, because obviously you still got to turn left at left at a couple of points around this circuit. You need to be able to have it working well both ways.
Adrian Block for Fordzilla. It's one of the new Ford's new esports teams in the sim racing world. What do you think about the name? Because I know that, isn't it Godzilla as the skyline as well? I find that a little bit contradictory.
Well, yeah, look, as an avid Skyline man, yes, there is only one Godzilla, and it ran in the 92 Bathurst race. Let's not speak about how it ended, but it ran there. It was phenomenal. But then everyone's kind of got on board with that. You've got the GTR Mercedes and a few other things, but everyone kind of uses everything else's stuff up. The Fordzilla team, I mean, they've been with this championship now for 3 seasons, if I'm correct in thinking that, and they've been coming on stronger and stronger. Vlok's been putting in a lot of laps, getting that car up towards the point end. I think he's doing this one solo as well. I don't believe we've got another team in there, but another team from the driver, but doing a really good job. You just see a slow BMW just in front of him. But Tim Phoeben, though, likewise, giving him a solid run, and Phoeben trying to get this move down into this final corner, just not close enough.
Yeah, very close here by Mr. Tim Phoeben in the BMW. As we switch over to Edwards, our leader. So it's Craig Edwards this race. We'll keep track of the Vlok versus Phoeben battle. They're alongside each other, I think. Phoeben's up ahead in 4th for the moment, at least on the timing screen. So whilst we keep track of that, it's Craig Edwards who leads this race by 3 seconds. Plenty of action coming up as we approach the halfway mark. So welcome back to the coverage for round number 3 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series. So in the ad break, in the meantime, we had a pit stop from our top 2, and that was the driver of Scott Gamble, who drops all the way down to 21st. He makes his first stop of the day. And what do we think about that? Daniel Leet, who's alongside myself, Jonathan Simon. We also have Scott Newton behind the scenes in production. I think a good timing for the pit stop if you're going to change tyres, because we're halfway through the race.
Yeah, probably not a bad spot. And with how widely spread the field is, it's a good chance to come out back into some clean air. Craig Edwards still yet to come down the lane. Darren Lobb, Peter Hunter, and Rob Crisdale, who we just see getting a move put on him. Those guys still yet to pit from the top 4, but it's going to open up a huge amount of options for where these guys come through. We'll keep an eye on Gamble, and for those playing at home, that was the shortest stop for Gamble, only 4 seconds stationary. Remember, these guys still have to come down again, do that full tyre service, so look for that second stop to be a little longer for him later on, but setting himself up pretty nicely right now.
And have a look at this. Craig Edwards is into the lane for his one and only pit stop. One of 2 pit stops for the day. Now, I think he entered a little cautiously there, so we're not expecting any penalties for the Fusion Sim Racing Ferrari driver. Let's see how he fares here. If he makes this a short pit stop, he should reclaim the lead. It's Darren Lobb who now snatches P1 from him and will lead a lap officially. Let's take a look and see whether or not anyone joins him. Adrian Vlock does join him into the lane. It's a very long run here at Road America for Craig Edwards, and he finally gets to his box.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of time to get down. About 35 seconds from the minute you enter and get to your box. This is going to be the long stop for him now. It's already ticked over 12 seconds. So as you see right there, the car jumping up on the jacks, the tyres will be going through, and we'll keep an eye to see where he falls out, because Gamble still working his way around the circuit, currently sitting in that 16th spot and coming through that final corner now. Thank you, Scott. He jumped to him there and should be able to get that move done. A little further up though, Ross Rizzo still fighting hard, Warren Pickering right behind in that Fusion car. Those two have been inseparable for about the last 10 minutes.
Now, did you see the way Edwards was parked in his pit box then? He was on an angle. Will that cost him pit time, do you think?
I don't think it'll hurt him too much. He'll be able to get a nice straight run out and light the tyres up and get going. So he should be relatively okay. He's dropped back in after that stop into 13th position. So a little further down from where was he? Racing. He's the gentleman who was racing. A little further down, but not too bad. And it was 36 seconds stationary time for him there as well.
And this is still Rizzo that we ride on board with. So brilliant insight from Daniel Leet alongside myself. So I guess at the end of the day, I remember Jared Filsell in the Supercars E-Series had an issue where he qualified on pole for Oran Park, and you know how tight the exit is to Oran Park, Daniel, and I felt as though he lost some time parking his car like that just because he needed to straighten up the exit. But I always go for the perfect park in the box, right? Is it a rumor in iRacing that if you park it wrong or incorrectly that you lose time?
I believe it does it with the NASCAR side, because if you get too close, obviously you can't do the tyres, but I'm not sure on the GT. And I'd love for the viewers out there that have probably done this multiple times, because God, I can't tell you the last time I jumped behind the wheel and had a solid run, but I'm sure that we do get some sort of issue as well on the roadside as well.
We'll wait and see here. I'm sure Scott Newton behind the scenes got a lot of insight for us, a lot of experience, Scott Newton. I found out the other day, Daniel, that Scott Newton has an account all the way back from, 2009, 2010, that he's forgotten the password to.
Wow, he's really making us look old, isn't he? He's been around for a long time. I mean, geez, I thought it was good when I clocked up. Might have been 7 years just recently, but I mean, you wonder, where's the time gone? I mean, have we been really doing it for this long?
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, let's focus back on the race. It's Robinson in the pits, joined by Hunter. So the Ford and the Fezzer will service their cars for, I believe this will be the second stop for Robinson. For Hunter, I'll confirm whether or not, I think this is his first stop of the day for Peter Hunter. So at least that's what it's saying on our timing screen. And there they are, servicing their cars. Already steering left is the driver behind the Peter Hunter, ready to go in the Ferrari. And those cars, this is a long stop, so we're assuming that's always tyres with a long stop.
Yeah, definitely. And like we saw with Robinson there, the car up, so definitely getting the tyres done there. Nash nicely just opening that door up, allows Craig Edwards to go down the inside in the Ferrari. Edwards now got Trent Thomas just in front, so another one of the tricky sports cars up ahead, and gets himself now into the 12th spot.
Yeah, some good stuff here. Brendan Nash. Oh, there's a car off the racetrack there. And that is at towards the Hurry Downs. And
that was Michael Kirkham.
So Kirkham now is a lap behind, isn't he?
Was down in that 14th spot, and yeah, little awkward position to be in there. That was down turn 7, so really odd the way that car had gone off the road there. Probably a lot of damage on the front end as well, so we'll see whether he's able to bring it back. And here's a quick replay as we go on. Looks like Paul Wood a little further off, but that incident already unfolded.
Yep, so excuse me, I got that wrong. Totally missed Michael Kirkham in the 15th position there after the incident. So Rob Crisdale's made his way past. He's not involved in this one. And all these drivers have come back. There's the Supervac Esports driver of Kleinbusink making his way past, and there is Kirkham still trying to make his way back onto the racetrack in the 991 car. And I mean, a lot of pogo sticks. It's like he's at a trampoline venue. ScoMo would be proud of that.
Yeah, definitely. Here we are. Actually, I think we got the corner wrong. It's on the exit of turn 6. You see him tip the car in up over the hill. Looks all pretty good. Runs it just up and catches that curb. That's a weird one because normally you'd see those cars run quite nicely, but heavy contact in that wall, and that's definitely going to need a fast repair to get it back in straight.
Let's have a listen. Goodness me, that's one of the most sluggish crashes I've seen. Is that a loss of concentration, do you think? Just a loss of rhythm?
No, I don't think so, because the car was looking really good. I think it was just something maybe in that curb strip that it's just picked up, rotated that car off, and unfortunately that was the end result. He should be able to get it home, just keeping an eye on where he is around the circuit. So keep an eye on that. Still trying to get that car back as he exits Canada Corner, so not too far to go for him there. Tim Phoeben, though, doing a solid job. Currently leading the race here. He has done that one quick stop already, 5-second stationary. Sam Holden a little further back also in for his stop. Darren Loeb, though, pushing the envelope, hasn't pitted as yet and continuing on for another lap.
Well, there is the DPR Racing 999 car continuing for another lap, as Daniel Leap mentions, and for Darren Loeb, he's setting some good lap times as well. In comparison, he went purple in Sector 1 last lap. So this time by, he set a 2-minute 2.6, and compared to your leaders, so let's look at Scott Gamble, 2-minute 1.8 for Scott Gamble, so 0.8 quicker. For Craig Edwards, a 2-minute 2.3. So for Darren Loeb there's the gap that he's improving on Timothy Phoeben behind in the BMW, but essentially towards the guys he's battling with for the race win, he's not really gaining lap time by staying out.
Yeah, not sure. We also saw a very stationary car down in 12th position as well. That was Brenton Hobson, potentially having some issues on the exit of Canada Corner, and another car involved in that, car 35. Paul Wood also getting in some issues as well. So we might have possibly another safety car coming out, which could ultimately really be hurting Loeb if that does.
Well, this could really shake up the race here if a safety car does come out in this final 30 minutes for round number 3, season 11 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series. Now we've got another replay. Always get a little bit hair-raising when watching these. Let's have a look. It's Paul Wood.
Yeah, a little half spin there. That's a weird one, that, but gets that car back underway. I think that might have been possibly Nick Sanfilippo, or one of the Ferraris there, working its way through as well. Pickering still trying to close in on the back of Rizzo for 4th and 5th.
Yeah, so there you go. This is Pickering like we're watching right now. Warren Pickering's gone a long way for no pit stops. Hey, Darren Loeb's finally in the pits now. It's almost been an hour. He's made it this far. We'll have a look and see if Pickering enters the box as he hunts down Ross Rizzo in the Trick Sim Sports Ferrari. Here they come through Canada Corner. So whilst Loeb services that car, he should fall behind Edwards and Gamble, where the gap is 6 seconds between those two. Timothy Phoeben joins Darren Loeb in the lane.
Yeah, not a bad move for Phoebe and Holden likewise coming in as well. So that'll be second stops for both of those drivers now done and dusted, and they are good to go to the end of this race. We'll keep an eye on these two though to see whether either of them blinks. Pickering, the first to jump to the lane, and gets his stop done out of the way. What can Ross do now that he's been released? Will he be able to crack in 1 or 2 solid laps and then come in and maybe gain a little bit extra time?
Now, we talk fuel in this car. Are they all entering the box at the same time for a pit party because of fuel?
No, I don't think it'll be fuel related. Probably just a good window to come in. Looking at some of the guys who'd come in before, they'd only done reasonably short stops. So they're going to get that long stop out of the way, get those fresh tyres on, and with 30 minutes left in the race, where would you want to be right now other than with fresh tyres?
Good point. As we see Dominic Malit enter yet another lap here at Road America. I've raced against Dominic in some Formula 3 racing before. He's pretty quick in that car. His teammate, obviously, Julian Kleibersink. They're racing today now in the GTs. Good to see the team out there for Supervac Esports racing away as they enter the top 10. Malit's made his second and final stop of the day. I'm not sure if he had a penalty, though, Daniel. That's hard for us to see on the iRacing service, but if he hasn't, he's on track for a good result here.
Yeah, doing a really good job at the moment. Last stop, 32 seconds, so his first stop when he came in did involve the tyres, but he's putting in some good laps. The consistency's there, just a fraction over the 2-minute range in a 2:02.13 last time by. He's got the pace, though, to get in there. Quickest lap so far and throughout the first 60 minutes, a 2:01.84, which is up there with the best of what we've seen tonight from our race leaders.
And let's look at this. Alex Court versus Jeremy Clark. The racing is on here. Battle for P21. Clark going for the undercut there. Just doesn't get on the power as early as he should have. And that could hamper his progress here on this second straight. On the run down to the hurry downs, look at the onboard details on the bottom right-hand side of the screen as we look at telemetry. The speed rises up to 260 kilometers an hour before you slam the brakes into here. Now, on the defensive was Alex Court there up the inside. It won't hamper him too much because there's not really an exit to turn 5 as you approach the uphill left-hander of 6.
No, it's a good little just move. Just position that car a fraction wider, maintaining the position that he needs to do. Actually gaining a smaller bit of an advantage there too. That car working quite well in Court's hands. There you can see him just touching the grass on the inside. And now through that long sweeping right-hander in the carousel.
I'm trying to watch the onboard shot, Daniel, but if you look at the left-hand side of the screen, everyone's entering the pit lane. Trying to keep track of both. Well, let's keep listening to Jeremy Clark here. Oh, excuse me, we dropped. Let's listen.
Actually, if anything, listening to Clark as he went through the kink there, I don't actually think we heard a lift there. So that pedal was matted all the way to the floor, pushing very hard. Likewise, Court, you can see him just running that car very, very wide. Maybe just struggling a little bit to get that car turned at the moment. And there's a car off to the inside of the circuit. Who's that? Is that Jeremy Clark? Oh, Scott Hausler with a huge amount of damage and unfortunately just missing pit entrance. So he's got another lap to do with that slightly damaged car.
Yeah, and the Kalioth racing driver rejoined the racetrack at quite a dangerous point too as these drivers scream at about 200 kilometers an hour up the hill. So let's have a look at what happened to Scott Hassler here. Goes through the final corner. And that can happen. You're looking to the right. He's had a slight moment under braking too, and he just caught the grass to the left-hand side.
Yeah, it wasn't much involved in that. Just like it's a nice solid run through turn 13 there. Got the car braked reasonably well. Just a little bit of a wobble just at the key point. Runs it off wide into the grass. Actually, that damage was already done well before that, but good awareness to be able to pull that car back. Brenton Hobson coming back after the earlier issues for himself there. Got Sam Holden in front. Chris Robinson still working on the back there. These guys just scrapping for that 10th position as well.
So this is important we keep track of this. Ross Rizzo into the pit lane. Darren Lobb is our effective leader at the moment. And Darren Lobb, as well as Edwards and Gamble, are yet to make their second stop. Now, we're expecting Lobb, if I'm correct, Daniel, to have a longer second pit stop. So that would mean Edwards and Gamble would reclaim the lead.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well. Edwards had that long stop, so it's only going to be a quick splash, stop in the lane and get going again. Rizzo still stationary and a reasonably good stop for him. 18 seconds, drops himself down, currently sitting in fifth, may drop behind, actually stays in front of Vandenberg on the exit there, so good run from him. And as you can see, all the drivers that have come in for stops, and look at the volume of drivers we see who came in at the end of lap one from those earlier issues and how far they've been able to spread these out.
Yeah, love the overlay there on the right-hand side of the screen. Reminds me of the early 2000s Formula One overlays where you had the bevel and emboss just involved. As we watch the pit stop strategy as well as the pit stop times for each stop that these drivers make. You can see Malit's quick first pit stop. So we're expecting him to come in again, if I'm not mistaken. He has made 2 trips through the lane. I'm not sure if there's been a penalty there, but nevertheless, we'll keep you posted on that for Dominic Malit, who seems to be having a good race so far. For Hobson, every time we look at him, he tends to be doing well. It's what happens off camera that seems to hurt him. He should definitely be up there on pace with your top 5 drivers. He's just been hurt by the incident on lap 1 and then another one about 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, definitely. But all in all, still hanging pretty tough. That car got a lot of good pace, holding alongside well with the Ford. And that other Ford there of Robinson trying to every which way to look and get a move up the inside. So maybe just struggling a fraction for the tyres right now, but he's in a really good position to continue taking some spots.
Now, were we watching, was it Jeremy Clark through the kink on board? I think. Whoever it was. We were watching them on board, right? And you talked about him going full throttle through there. I remember, I don't know if it was Jacques Villeneuve or somebody spoke about this, where if you needed to go full throttle through a corner and you didn't have the guts to do it, you plant your left foot over your right foot and you can't lift.
It's not a bad way to do it. We just see that pass go through as well for Robertson, probably using that little trick there, the double foot in the accelerator to get it through. But yeah, that's not a bad way to do it. Never thought of it like that.
I think you're crazy if you do something like that. But anyway, I don't drive these things in the real world. I'm just a sim racer. As Hobson is in the 13th position now after losing that spot to Chris Robinson in the Ford. Robinson's had a decent race so far. He's up a couple of positions, but we've seen him up and everywhere through the field. It's Darren Lobb that, as you can see, leads the race, but we're expecting him to have a longer second stop. Now, when are we going to expect those second stops to come in? For the ones who are making the quicker stop, are they going to come in before the drivers who have to make the long stop?
Oh, look, mate, it's so hard to tell. I would expect we're going to have huge volume of guys coming in sooner rather than later, as we see Clements and Phoeben switching places. Phoeben getting a nice move up the inside. The teammates not really scrapping over that. But it's so hard to tell. But the guys are going to be very watchful on the timers. They've still got 23 minutes left on the clock. 1 stop still in the bag to do. You need to time it pretty well right to get that done. And with the way the field's starting to spread out, not a lot of opportunity to maybe come back in, but for Lobb, probably the best place right now because 4th position, which is Dominic Melt, just getting through the kink. So he's got probably the best window to come back and still retain the podium position. Yeah,
good point there. So, as we said, we'll keep track of that as usual. A lot of Ferraris in your top 5, top 6 positions there too. So Ferrari, as we said, a very popular car. Nice to see a lot more Fords out there in the field too, but we're closing towards the final 20 minutes of this race. Dave Clements now, with time ticking down, has made 2 stops and is having a look here at Timothy Phoeben for 7th. Phoeben closed the door, but confidently without contact.
Yeah, good move there. Both those drivers, actually Hender pushing to come through. So Clements very defensive. That car struggling just a little bit. I was watching it actually went by last lap. With the camera we had, I was almost going to say insert the big boy picture here because that BMW looked huge by comparison to the Ford. But struggling maybe just a touch now for Clements with Hender closing in.
Yep, so it was the other way around about that. So Clements there on the defensive, as Malit makes his final stop of the day. He's going to drop down the order, well, by an immense margin right now, all the way down to 16th at the moment, along with his teammate Julian Kleibersink. He'll be out of the box. This is actually his 3rd trip through pit lane for Dominic Malit. So that confirms that he hadn't made an official 2 pit stops. He comes out of the pits now. He's going to rejoin at a very tense portion of the racetrack here into turn 1. Ahead of him there, that is Jeremy Clark, who we were watching earlier in the BMW. Clark making a move on Scott Hassler in the Ferrari, still alongside each other heading into 3.
Yeah, 3 wide into turn 1, not where you want to be. And for those two coming through, Hausler and Clark, they would be very wary of that. Malik, though, in a prime position, though, just coming out of the lane, he should be able to get a solid run here and maybe regain a spot, if not 2. But these guys very, very defensive on the run in.
Love this shot with Malik coming out of the lane, cold tires. Oh, and you're trying to figure out where to go, and there's a stranded car there off the racetrack. While that chaos is ensuing, Darren Lobb enters the box for his final stop of the day. This will be the long one for Lobb. Scott Gamble joins him, though. It's going to be a race at a pit lane between these two.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on this. I think that car spinning might have been Specchio, potentially. It was definitely a DPR car. We'll keep an eye on that as the guys working their way through. And a big move down the inside there, almost getting a pass done. Actually, Aaron Lechty pulling over and letting these guys through. That's a weird spot to be doing that.
Yeah, there is Mr. Lechty, as I learnt to pronounce last year. So let's see what happened to Adrian here on the exit of 5. Goodness me, if you're watching sim racing, if you're a kid out there, that's not the way to let people pass with blue flags. And I'm sure Adrian Lechty will knows he's made a mistake there. Something that we'll try and not discuss, just to let him off the hook there for a little bit. But Lobb's exited the pit lane. He's down in 15th as Darren Lobb. Scott Gamble is in 5th. That tells you how this race is going to play out now, because this is Scott Gamble defending from a couple of drivers here. Gamble's in the Ferrari. He's got Huppets and Clements behind him. Clements on the defensive from Brett Hender yet again.
Yeah, well, 2x2 for both the Mark 1 cars and Fusion again down here. Big move for Hender down the inside, I think. Just going to hold back, so I'm surprised he wasn't able to get that car down, but good on Clements for keeping up with it in the Ferrari. But I think ultimately going to have to succumb here. Proven wrong again. He's hanging tough in that Ford.
Yeah, Hender's very cautious through there. He knows that turn 6 is a graveyard for a lot of hopes and opportunities in people's races. I've seen a lot of races end there more than wins gained, and so Hender backs off and decides he wants to make that move possibly at another portion of the racetrack. So let's see if he can get it done over these next few laps. But now we await Craig Edwards to make his final stop of the day. And would you? He's continued away. He hasn't entered the lane this time round. And the reason I say would you, Daniel, is he's gone purple in the final 2 sectors.
Yeah, really getting on with his lap now. So second position at the moment, Ross Rizzo, just about now turning into that final corner. So it's a huge gap for Edwards at this point in time. Had that long stop first time around, he only needs a short stop here. And when it's going to take you 35 seconds to get to the box, another 3 seconds, he's probably looking at 40 seconds in stationary time. So if anything, may find him dropping behind both Vandenberg, potentially Phoeben. Now, keep an eye on that, because Phoeben's the first driver that's already done 2 stops right now.
Yeah, exactly. So Phoeben in good position in the BMW. Hender entering the lane. So maybe that's why Hender's not gone for the move. He's probably planned for a pit stop. Or otherwise, he's adjusted that as soon as he realized he couldn't make the move. Who knows? The thing I've learned, Daniel, is for someone, like I've driven a lot of sim racing, right, in my time. When you jump into the commentary booth, the biggest thing I've learned not to do is not to assume what a driver's thinking, if that makes sense. Unless you know what they're thinking, call it. If not, don't assume that they've not gone for a move or decided otherwise. There's a lot of stuff going on in the cockpit.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I guess, yeah, perfect example of that. We were watching both those two guys having a run through 5 and 6. Probably the racer in me is like, get it up there, get it up there. But you just got to think that fraction better, because at the end of it, you've got 2 drivers, you're trying to get a race done. And what's the point in spearing both of you off the circuit?
Yeah, exactly. As we watch that corner, the famous turn 6, as this is Trent Thomas now for Trick Esports. Haven't seen Trent Thomas, to be honest with you, that much this race. Thomas started down in 11th, and he's down a couple of positions now. But he's on the defensive here for Darren Lobb. Darren Lobb up the inside, having a look into the hurry downs, now into the carousel. Lob will have to form up behind, but Lob certainly quicker, just servicing that Ferrari for fresh rubber. So this should be an easy move come Canada corner.
Yeah, definitely. Last time by 3/10 quicker in favour of Lob there. So he certainly got the pace on board that car. I think Trent might have actually been part of some of those earlier issues we saw lap 1 where we had those big wrecks, because it's not like him to be this far back, especially with where he qualified. I would have expected him to be a little bit further up. Going very defensive already though, trying to keep Lob right behind him.
Oh, a bit wonky there through Bill Mitchell Bend. Thought one of their races was going to end for a second. Nathan Huppert's into the lane in the BMW. And a candy from a baby move for Darren Lobb here on the main straight. I'm not even going to call this one. I'm just going to let it play over this main straight. So confident with the move, he rejoins the racing line before turn 1 and gives him the draft.
Yeah, it's a bold move. They're just going right around the outside. Really got that exit nice from 14 and face that Ferrari. Keeping good stead. I'm a little surprised maybe the BMW didn't come back. We know how good it is in the top speed, as we also see Clark and Hauser, going at it again. These two virtually inseparable. Right behind though, you've got Adrian Vlock and that Fordzilla car working his way back up.
Yeah, good stuff from Vlock. So 15 minutes remaining in this race. Don't forget to check out Abruzzi Raceway at abruzzi.com.au. Of course, check out Simfinity too at simfinity.com.au. Abruzzi Raceway and Simfinity can sort you out with sim racing equipment. You can get yourself sorted and take in participation for these Aussie mixed and fixed GT races. They're thrilling on a Sunday night here in Australia. And this series does use RMS55.com.au. That's the race management service software. And that helps us sort out grids, does a multitude of things, Daniel, and helps us get this racing underway each Sunday evening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all those three sponsors being very instrumental in helping this championship out. Jeremy Clark trying to pull that move. Vlock, though, just slides in that Ford. I thought he might have got a move up the inside there, just hanging back a fraction. This is going to be a great opportunity to see how all three of these cars, different manufacturers for all of them, how do they run through the kink on these used tyres? And right now, see them all going very well. A little bit of dirt thrown up from Hauser as he threw it through.
Oh, yeah. This is the scene of the infamous incident on turn 1. Let's watch and see how this plays out through Canada corner. Too wide. And Vlock is ready to pounce on Hassler here or Clark. If something goes wrong, they scream through Bill Mitchell Bend, the uphill left-hander. Already setting up his line is Jeremy Clark through the final corner at turn 15. And then we begin another lap here at Road America. The Fordzilla car of Vlock, though, he wants to dispose of these guys as quickly as possible. In the pit lane on the left-hand side, you'll see Brenton Hobson, as well as Warren Pickering, the two BMWs. And then ahead of them, the battle continues here as Clark attacks Hassler. Into turn 1 they go. Clark, this is a bold move around the outside. Oh, and there was contact between him and the Ferrari. That could end the race of Vlock, who manages to avoid it. And certainly a clumsy incident, it has to be said. But I want to get another look at this.
Yeah, that was a tight move. Clark with the big run around the outside and held the pace on that, just unfortunately coming across the nose. Vlock, I think, might have got just the fraction of smallest touches there just on that back wheel, so keep an eye on it.
Yeah, well, Scott, you're on it, mate. This is the camera shot I wanted to see. Oh, I mean, it's even tough to see from there. You know what I'm looking for, right? I don't want to say it, but you know what I'm looking for. So Clark there will rejoin the race because he touched the barrier on the rejoin, just making it a double whammy for Clark. So unfortunately for him, his race takes a turn for the worse. Lee Vandenberg in third here.
Race leader
on the defensive
in the lane as
yeah,
well.
You're right. Yep, Craig Edwards in the lane, Daniel.
So Edwards coming in, Rizzo and Vandenberg will get past, but just keep in mind those two still got to come back the lane for their respective stops. Edwards is already moving, so a little bit longer stop for him, but back underway.
So that is potentially a race victory for Craig Edwards. Ross Rizzo has yet to make his Well, I mean, it says he's listed as 2 pit stops. Whether or not that's an official second pit stop, we'll wait and see. But Rizzo right now is in the first position. We'll see whether or not he can win this race, though, or whether or not he enters the lane. And we believe he may have to enter again. Let's wait and see. But again, the battle continues here between Fieben and Vandenberg, who just lost that podium position. Fieben up to 3rd.
Yeah, and I don't think there'll be much between these two. They'll call it out. Teammates, as you can see them in similar liveries for the Mark 1 car team there, they'll be playing this one out. If anyone's quicker, I'm sure they'll open the door and continue that on through. You just caught a shot there of Craig Edwards just ahead in his car. Right behind that, you've got Scott Gamble closing in. So the Mark 1 boys on a bit of a charge trying to get up towards that pointy end.
Couple of teammates here fighting away here. This is who am I watching here? This is Stephen Bartholomew. No, excuse me, those aren't teammates. That's the Supervac car of Julian Kleinbersink, who's ahead of Dominic Malit. We thought Malit was on for a good result, but we forgot about that second pit stop. And that's a Ferrari behind of Darren Lobb, who was once in contention for a podium, now all the way down in 13th. So why has that happened for Darren Lobb?
Yeah, not too sure. He's obviously working way back up. We did see him with that second stop, which was a little bit longer for him. We know he had to take the tyres and he dropped quite a way back. Still 9 spots up from where he started, but well off the pace to where we'd need to see him. I think this traffic in front of him right now is really starting to hurt him, but I'm going to cut back to a little bit of a replay just to see if we can ID what happened here. Oh, it was a spin just before the bridge going into the carousel and some damage on that front end. So gets the car rotated around, not caught up anything, but he actually lost 4 spots as a result of that spin.
Yeah, so unfortunate here to close out the race because we're in the closing 10 minutes. So again, drivers starting to get a bit rowdy here. Have a look at the speed there through the King. That's an awesome camera shot here. As we now flick over to Darren Lobb, who we ride on board with to turn 1. There's no way past. This is frustrating. This is like me going 80 kilometers an hour on my public road outside my house, going stay to the left. It's overtake to the right, you know, but there's no way through. And I'm Darren Lobb right now in this situation, wondering, come on, guys, I'm late to work.
Yeah, and Lobb pushing extremely hard there, a little bit to his detriment, drops a little bit behind. But yeah, you're right, the Supervac car and the RRT car, very, very similar in livery and colouring, both using similar things. But a good bit of driving, though, from Bartholomew, able to get the car around, holding station. He's got Trent Thomas a little further up from him now. Loeb, though, closing in and trying to get a positional gain on both of these two.
I hope the two teams are invested in lawyers, because I'd be arguing for the colours on my side, unless they're in collaboration. Darren Lobb couldn't give 2 cents for that as he comes through the hurry downs, trying to make a move here on Julian Klein-Bersink. Darren Lobb, I think, is officially ahead, and yes, he is. That's confirmed as I look back up from the timing screen, and he heads his way through the carousel. I say heads his way, he rockets his way past the carousel and now into the kink. This is such a brilliant camera shot through here. So where do we think Darren Lobb will finish this race? He can potentially close in for a top 10 finish, although that would be very optimistic.
Yeah, I think he's definitely got the chance for a top 10, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. The thing I'm keeping an eye on right now is our gap between first and second, Rizzo and Edwards, starting to close up a little bit. Rizzo, obviously, he did come in through lap 1. I think he's good to go.
Yeah.
The pace just going to be there. Can he keep enough fuel in the tank to get that Trick Esports car home? And I guarantee you the boys will be ecstatic if they can do that. Edwards, though, he's got tyres, he's got fuel, good to go. And we saw it last time by, the pace is a little quicker. Edwards did a 2:02.8 versus Rizzo of a 2:03.08. So a little bit of an advantage in favour of Edwards, but we're still looking at a 3-second gap.
Yeah, and what do you do here as a driver if you're Craig Edwards, Daniel? Do you have that relative box open, just trying to gain time each corner? Just try and gain 1/10 each corner and try your best?
No, you turn it all off. You focus on the car ahead and you go for gold. The less distractions you got, the better it is. That being said, though, we don't know what these guys are doing behind the scenes, and I'd love to see it from their angle, but I would be flicking everything off and get those eyes focused forward.
The reason I do that, Daniel, is because sometimes, as now Edwards closes in 4/10, as I began my last sentence, but the reason I like to do that with a relative box is I like to see, okay, if I'm losing a tenth through that corner, I'm going to try my best to gain and push a little bit harder. I'm going to figure out what I'm doing wrong. I remember I had an F3 race at Montreal last week where I was doing that, and I noticed there were some corners I gained 2 tenths, the hairpin I gained a tenth, and it was turn 3-4 that I would lose 3 tenths to the driver, and I went, I've been making a mistake all race there. So I started pushing it a little bit quicker and eventually caught up to the dude and passed him for the win.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, the way the mind works, because for me, I used to looking at that car just coming at me, and if I can get close enough, it's good to see. We're already a second off as we tick over to just over 5.5 minutes to go. So 2 seconds now for Edwards to make up. Certainly very, very doable. And he was a second a lap quicker last time by it, 2:01.9. So certainly got the pace on board that Ferrari.
Yeah, goodness me, Ross Rizzo. I'm not sure what's happened to his pace, but I don't think Ross Rizzo is doing anything wrong. I think it's Edwards in the Ferrari who's screaming towards potentially a race victory. 5 minutes to go for Rizzo in the Trick Esports car, but as you said, Daniel, we think he's good to go to the finish. Whether or not he makes it there in the first position is another question.
Well, that's it. I mean, these guys have got a little bit of buffer over second and third. The teammates, Fieben and Vandenberg, actually not that far behind. It's only a gap of about 6 seconds covering our top four, well, actually less than 6 seconds covering our top four. So these guys are good to go. A little further back, Holden and Robson, well down the order. I don't think we'll get to those guys, but certainly at this point, Rizzo, if he's got the fuel in the tank and is able to get it there, at worst, we're looking maybe a fifth, but sure, knowing how good he is with the fuel saving, he should be able to keep that up and keep going. Only lost 2 tenths over the course of this lap.
Well, Rizzo's got some grit, so I know it won't be an easy overtake for sure. Here's a replay, though. This is Braden Nash. This is down in 23rd. Oh, so excuse me. We just had word in our ears. This is the Scott Gamble move in the Mach 1 Esports car on Lee Vandenberg.
Yeah, a nice easy down the inside. Not too much of a challenge between either of those guys. So the teammates working together quite nicely and no change of paints.
Yeah, good stuff. And as you say that, no change of paints. Ironically, the same paint for the teammates as they come through. Alex Court now in the 14th position on Julian Kleimbesink in the Supervac Esports car. Contact between the two. And that was a very odd accident there for Court. It looked like he tried to steer into the corner. I'm not sure if Kleimbesink ran a bit hot.
Yeah, a bit of a weird one. We'll keep an eye on the onboard here with Court. Runs down the traditional racing line, not too much in it. If anything, maybe just pushed a fraction by Kleimbesink, just moving that car a little over in the right. So definitely we'll wait to see what race control have to say about that one, but a little bit clumsy.
Yeah, that's a bit, as I said, I think you summed that up right. Very, very clumsy. I think also Alex Court got a little bit loose under braking. Might have had a bit too much rear bias dialed into the BMW. But nevertheless, though, as we approach the end of this race, I see a lot of position changes from P22 to P26 as there are drivers in some good scraps here. Adam Gardner falling through a couple of positions. Crisp up a couple of spots. Gardner's falling down like a fly right now. He's off the racetrack, is the Porsche driver. So issues for him. We'll keep track of the replay here, Daniel, whilst you look at it. The gap between Rizzo and Edwards, 0.8 of a second now for the race victory.
Yeah, and that little issue there for Gardner, a little bit weird, just running the car wide down into Canada corner, come in extremely hot, snatches the brake, and then off into the gravel trap with a finish in the tyre barrier, so not great for him. Unfortunately, up front, though, as you say, Edwards and Rizzo, there he is, Rizzo just ahead in that Trick Sim Sports car. How tough does he make it?
Next lap by will be the final lap. So the white flag will wave, as they say in America. It's only fitting here at Road America in Wisconsin. It's up to Craig Edwards here to fight for victory on Ross Rizzo. He's going to make this move out there on the racetrack. Look at the sector times at the bottom of the screen. Every sector except the final one, Edwards has gained time. So let's see as he crosses the line. I'm pretty sure That will flick to green for Sector 5. Here he is now, making a move for the lead on Rizzo. He's got a mammoth run into turn 1.
Yeah, the car very, very good. Rizzo, hugely defensive. Only moves that one thing, holds it off through turn 1. Still 14 more corners to go.
Oh, wow. Brilliant racecraft by Rizzo. Parked the Ferrari on the apex and impedes Edwards' exit here as they now fight towards turn 3. The final time they head towards turn 3 for this 90-minute enduro for round 3. Rizzo now trying to change his line, trying to break the toe, and I think he might have this done as they head to the hurry downs. Let's ride on board with him. Goodness me, Daniel, Rizzo is on it right now. Now, here we talked about turn 6. It can make or break a race. Having a peek was Edwards. He's confident. Whether or not he can make his way past, like we said, is another question. Now, through the hurry downs, could be one of the final overtaking spots of the day.
Yeah, definitely. Rizzo just holds the car there. Edwards down the inside. Neither guy giving an inch here. Get into the carousel. I think this is going to help Rizzo just extend that gap just a touch.
So we're approaching 90 minutes. This will be the final time they head through the carousel. Rizzo trying to go for... Well, he's back onto the racing line here. Now defensive into the kink. I've never seen that. Oh, and what's happened to Ross Rizzo here? No, excuse me. He's back on the racetrack. Contact between him and Edwards. It looked like a technical issue had a part to play in that. But at the moment, it looks like Craig Edwards, in a bizarre finish right now, will unofficially win this race if he can hold it together through the final corners. Rizzo's down to 6th and is still, I think, yet to rejoin the racetrack. It's difficult to see, but Craig Edwards, after a bizarre final lap in this race, will win round 3 for season 11 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series.
Yeah, great win for Edwards. Take nothing away from. A little bitterly disappointing for Rizzo there. Well down the order. Tim Feeman and Scotty Gamble, the Mark 1 boys, coming across the line 2nd and 3rd. It's a great run for them. Vandenberg coming home in 4th.
Well, where is Rizzo? He's in 6th. He's about to cross the line now as we watch Darren Lobb all the way down in 12th. Who could have expected Darren Lobb to finish so far down after he had such a promising beginning to this event? But Rizzo, that's a disappointing finish, to be honest with you. And we're expecting a move into Canada corner for sure, Daniel. Who knows if it was going to be a drag race to the line, but I definitely think, I'm not sure if it popped up on your screen, but Ross Rizzo certainly had a technical issue.
Yeah, I think I saw him just jump in and out. It's a very awkward one there to see, so we'll see what comes from it. But yeah, bitterly disappointing for Rizzo. He would have loved to have taken the win here. Unfortunately, comes home in that 6th position. The racing, though, still continuing on to the finishing positions here. Martin Chris, Braden Nash still going at it as they come across the line. These guys scrapping down over 22nd and 23rd.
Yep, so Braden Nash there ends up behind Martin Chris. This is Peter Hunter for the VMMR team. Haven't seen him much today, but Peter Hunter through the final corner will end up 29th. Unless there's an incident ahead. No, there's not. So he will end up 29th. As he crosses the line here shortly, but goodness me, such a heartbreaking finish. We still have some runners coming through, so it's not the end of the race there as the final leaders come, but you just have to feel for Mr. Rizzo. I don't want to keep bringing it up, but I mean, the worst possible moment to have a technical issue. The way I see it, I feel like Edwards, as soon as Rizzo popped back up on screen, Edwards really had no control over what to do.
Yeah, definitely, and it's a hard thing because when you drop out like that, you don't know, has the driver in front hit the brakes? Are they giving up that little bit of time? And by the time you come back in, it's all too late. So very unfortunate for both of them. Let's see if we can cut back to another replay as the guys working their way through the carousel. You can see absolutely nothing between either of these two as they kick into the kink. And then Rizzo just disappears. And you got to feel for Edwards at the same point, not knowing where he's coming back in. Race control already got on and looked at that. They're deeming it as a net code issue, no further contact due to that drop of error for Rizzo, unfortunately.
Oh, wow. Well, there you go. And the race is, I would say, official now for the results. Let's have a look at those final race results for this round number 3, season 11. There we go. So we've got our race results on screen. I think I called that a little bit too early, but it doesn't matter. Craig Edwards wins this race for the Fusion Sim Racing team by 2.5 seconds ahead of Timothy Phoeben. A Mach 1 Esports 234 for Phoeben, Gamble, and Lee Vandenberg. Are we surprised to see Phoeben up there, Daniel, in the second position?
No, not really. I mean, he put in a solid run. The car performed faultlessly for him, and again, to see the Mach 1 boys take second through fourth, I mean, hats off to them. Did a fantastic job. Ultimately, should that contact not have gone, we may have seen a slightly different thing between Rizzo and Edwards and how they finished. But take nothing away from how they come about. It was fantastic.
Yeah, there you go. So the rest of the finishers on screen, Rizzo, who could have potentially won this race or finished second, ends up in sixth. And then we see a couple of the Superback guys down the order in 13th and 18th. Fordzilla of Adrian Vlock in 15th, ahead of Scott Hassler. Didn't see much of Trent Thomas today, but the other Trick Esports car finished in 9th behind Richard Hunter. Chris Robinson with a good result in 7th. We'll cycle through to the next page from 19th onwards, and you'll see the rest of the grid now up on screen. We had a big grid today. I didn't see any rookie drivers racing in the top split. I can't remember the last time that happened, Daniel, for no drivers with the number 1 beginning with their 3 digits to not be racing in a race.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you last time. I mean, that was a little bit different for tonight, but looks like we're not too sure.
Yeah, there you go. So you don't have to comment on that. As we come through, looking at the rest of the grid, down the order we had a few DNFs. So Adrian Lechty down in the 34th position was a lap down. I'm not sure if it was officially a DNF, but for the DPR racing driver, we saw an abysmal moment of him letting a few cars through. We've seen better from Adrian Lechty before. He's definitely a front runner when the practice is there for Mr. Lechty, and then you can see the rest of the DNFs on screen. Issues for Neil Pearson and number 1 involved in that early incident. Felt like a lot more cars were involved in the big one, certainly at Bathurst for sure. But for now, though, it'll be time for post-race interviews, and we will bring Craig Edwards, our winner, up first for the... Let's grab him up in a second. Here we go. Craig, we got you there.
Hello.
There we are. Winner for round number 3, Craig Edwards, the Fusion Sim Racing driver. Can we go straight to the final lap, mate? Because it was a very bizarre incident. I've never seen anything like it on iRacing, where a car disappears and then reappears back in front of you.
Oh, that was really robbed us of a grandstand finish, didn't it? Coming out of the carousel, I had a really good run. I thought I'd just back off a little bit and then try and really push underneath him on the exit of the kink. And just before turning, he disappears. I'm like, oh my god, what's going on? And then when he reappeared, it looked like he carried even less speed than I expected him to. So I just had nowhere to go. The very next second, I was right in the back of him. It's a real shame.
He did nail the strategy, though, and I don't think, if I'm correct, you did not pit during the first safety car period. So is that something you'll be reviewing with the team to make sure that you tend to nail this strategy at next week's endurance event as well?
Yeah, 100%. I did read the rule book through, but I didn't notice that the rule for minimum laps before pitting had been removed. It's harder to spot an omission than an inclusion. So, definitely we'll be looking at that for next time around. Still, the strategy seemed to work out okay, going rabbit and just running under green conditions the whole way through. Being in traffic in that early part of the race would have been a bit hairy.
Yeah, definitely. Finally, a lot of people to thank, of course, in that Fusion Sim Racing team. Great to see you back in victory lane, mate, but who gets it done for you in that number 928 car?
Yeah, it's good to be back. Thank you very much. Big thanks to all the guys from Fusion Sim Racing, but specifically our sponsors, Eclipse Signage, Dripping Paint Graphics, and D-Carter Plus.
It is, because it added another dimension.
Yeah, just as we conclude the interview with Craig Edwards, we drag Timothy Phoeben in. But thanks, Craig. We'll leave you to it, mate, and hopefully see you for victory next time out. Daniel, you're stood alongside Timothy Phoeben, who we drag in mid-conversation, but we get to have a post-race interview with him now.
Yeah, that's it. Tim, mate, congratulations, second place tonight. Well done. Out there, how was everything for yourself? Big run up through the field starting from 12th.
Yeah, thanks, mate. It was a good race and really showed off the new tyre model, I think. And strategy really played into it. I pitted under safety car. on the first lap, and then took sort of my tyres much later on. And it just, I was able to sort of cut back through the field on the fresher tyre, because I think there was a few sort of up the front at that point that were they were getting pretty tired. But ripper race, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, towards the end, coming home on those fresh tyres, the car looked really, really good. You found yourself in some good battle with the teammates. Looks like everyone getting along quite nicely. No paint shed. But coming towards the end, final lap, get through the kink. What were your thoughts seeing what unfolded ahead of you?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm getting pretty used to it. It's happened in quite a few races when I've been sort of in third or second. Look, I was just lining up the gap, and I was conscious of Scott behind me because he was getting pretty close. So I just sort of, wanted to pick the safest route and, punch through. So it worked out all right in the end.
Definitely. Anyway, again, congratulations, second place. Well done tonight, mate. Before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to thank for helping you along the way?
Yeah, just like to thank Mark One, RMS Race Management Service, LeBlanc Group, Night Rider Designs, Wolf Graphics, Sandblock Media, Comperte, and just thanks to you guys and Ryan for running the series. It's turning out to be a really ripper year and very competitive. So, thanks a lot.
Absolutely, couldn't say any better. Hope to see you out again next week for round 2 of the endurance.
Mate. Thanks, guys.
So next up will be Scott Gamble, who came home in the final podium position. Scott, if we go back to the start of your race, you began the race in 6th. You see Ross Rizzo and Martin Crisp in a bizarre collision at turn 1. You never look back from there, just sort of dominating the first few positions. I'm not sure if there were many other events that went on in your race, apart from a battle or two.
Hi guys, how you doing? Yeah, when it unfolded, I thought, well, just I hope I stay out of it because I've had a bad run of late, and and it was just a matter of trying and stay with Craig as long as we could. Like, he's super fast, and we stayed there for about 13 laps, and then he started driving away from us, and we just didn't have any pace or tyres to go with him. But it was still good fun seeing someone that fast like Craig, and being able to stay with him for a little bit and see how he does it. It was awesome.
Now, you're someone, I want to bring this up, which we haven't had a chance to, at least in the past few months, but you're an avid streamer yourself. You've got a few followers now, and you're starting to build yourself up. Were you streaming tonight? And did the follower count certainly increase after that thrilling race?
Yeah, I did stream tonight, and we had quite a few in there having a chat, but most realised how hard I was concentrating, and they kept the chat to a minimum.
Yeah, I don't know how they, how all the streamers you watch on YouTube and everything, they're able to talk through the races. Sometimes I feel like the guys, you do it with a camera, but the guys who do it without a camera, I'm always skeptical of whether or not they're just recording that or dubbing their voice in afterwards, because I couldn't concentrate like that by talking too much for my team.
It takes a little while to practice and learn it, that's for sure.
But finally, a good race for you as well. You talked about yourself having a bad run, but today is a good way to end your Sunday evening. And as well for the Mach 1 esports team in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Who'd you like to thank today from the team?
Yeah, look, I'd like to thank Mach 1 and all the lads there. Their support and the way they go about, practicing for races and encouraging you to strive and do better is second to none. They really are a great bunch of lads. RMS, Comperte as well, the sponsors LeBlanc and Sandblock Media for all the stuff they do within the team. But also the guys that come in and follow me each week and within my own stream, they're the ones that have been actually keeping me motivated to keep going. So I'd like a big shout out to them that all come in, have a watch, have a follow, and give the stream a like. So yeah, thanks guys. Without you guys, I think I may have gone on a holiday for a little while.
Well, there you go. We'll leave you to it, Scott. Brilliant result for yourself. Definitely give Scott a follow too on his associated platforms. Are you at SG1? Is it Racing Gaming? I think SG1 Gaming.
Yes, mate. It's SG1 Gaming on Facebook and just Scott Gamble on YouTube. So yeah, much appreciated, guys. Girls.
Yep. Give him a follow, guys, and we'll leave you to it for this week, Scott. But Daniel, for next week, we head to Spa. And I tell you what, man, I love it. Love Spa. Probably one of the best circuits in the world for sure. It's with a circuit that brought Atsej Kirchhoff to iRacing. and it's one that we're going to head to next Sunday evening.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It's a phenomenal track to go around, whether you drive it, real life, look at it in photos, do it on iRacing. It gives you a huge amount of challenges and thrill. Obviously, the run up through Rouge, famous regardless of where you go, a lot of tough challenges, sorry, for the guys to get through. But that's so good, the challenges are all the way around.
So there you go. So those GTE machines you saw in action will be back racing again for the next race, of course, as we head into April in a week's time. It'll be back for 90 minutes of racing action around the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, and it hosts round 4 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series. Thanks, of course, to our series sponsors. That's RMS, the race management software at rms55.com.au. Also, thank you to Abruzzi Racewear and Simfinity, which can help you out with sim racing equipment. For myself, Jonathan Simon, hope you enjoyed today's Apex Racing TV broadcast, all on the iRacing Esports Network. Daniel Leet alongside me and Scott Newton behind the scenes. We have a tremendous Apex Racing TV crew that made this broadcast today what it was here. And this brilliant presentation will be back again in 7 days' time, as we said. But our winners today will be Craig Edwards. We'll say so long from Road America, and we'll see you in a week's time.